Hiya, I'm a Zamen, and I want to talk about Dragon Quest V Hand of the Heavenly Bride for the PlayStation 2, because I have recently completed it and found it to be a truly exceptional adventure, one that tugs at the heartstrings with its incredible tale of tragedy and victory. To begin, Dragon Quest V has several versions. Originally, it was released for the Super Nintendo/Super Famicom in 1992, and it, much like Dragon Quest VII, has been fully remade twice. The most well-known version is the one on the Nintendo DS that came out in 2009, where it was remade alongside Dragon Quest IV and VI. Also, it was then where it was released in English for the first time. Yet before that, in 2004, there was Dragon Quest V, Tenku no Hanayomi for the PlayStation 2. A Japan exclusive, it was a version of Dragon Quest V that was fully remade in wonderful PS2 3D. As a Japan exclusive, it was of course never officially released in English, but a fan translation was completed back in 2010. Yeah, over 15 years ago. Yet, development on this fan translation began well before the DS version came out, meaning that the localization in the fan translation is different. From my understanding, the fan translation has a more direct translation of the Japanese script with less adaptation, so names will be different. For example, in the DS version, the father of the protag, his name is Pancrez, but in the PS2 version, he is Papa's, which is it's just silly. A benefit of the PS2 version is that aside from the 3D-ness, you have the soundtrack, where you can hear the glory of a fully symphonic orchestra. And this is one of the major selling points of playing this version of the game. The soundtrack is genuinely exceptional. I personally think this might be my favorite rendition of the iconic Dragon Quest theme. You know, the da-da-da-da-da-da. No, that's not it. Now then, with all that preamble out of the way, I ask that you understand that the purpose of this video is to analyze and discuss the story of Dragon Quest V and its focus on the theme of lost childhood. You got that? Cool, cause before starting, I actually want to mention a bug that plagues me when trying to start this game. You see, if you were to, by chance, use PCSX2 to run a legally acquired ROM of Dragon Quest V, then you have a high chance of not progressing very far. Because about 5 minutes into the game, when you receive a map, the game will just freeze or crash. And before you reach that point, you might notice that the game has no background music, only sound effects. This is apparently a very much common, luck-based bug, and it's only thanks to this hero on Reddit that I was even able to play the game. To avoid that crash, all you have to do is restart the game, let the iconic intro play for a few seconds, and arrive at the Load in Adventure screen. If the music is playing, congrats, you can now start a new game. If no music is playing, restart and try again. Keep restarting until eventually you hear the music on this screen. The first time I did this, I spent 11 minutes restarting it until it worked. And the second time I did this, in order to gather footage of this bug, the process took me 22 minutes. It does not permanently fix the bug, and for that reason, while I did in-game save, I always loaded up my game using save states. I had no reason to take any risks. But with all of that said, let's dive into Dragon Quest V Hand of the Heavenly Bride for the PlayStation 2. The game begins with my birth and the subsequent naming. Seems like my dad wanted to name me Madison, but I think I lucked out as Edwin. My mom wasn't so lucky, as the first thing she does is give an ominous premonition, before everything then fades away as I awaken on a ship with my father, Lord Papa, standing beside me. As it stands, I am 6 years old, following my father as he's in the midst of an epic quest. I don't know what he's questing for because, well, I'm 6, but I'm having a good time. I think. We disembark the ship after briefly encountering a blue-haired girl and then set out across the mainland. My father is stupid strong, so he annihilates everything in our path while I just watch. Our first real adventure takes us to the village of Al Kappa, where we deliver some medicine to a man named Duncan, as he was sick, and end up infecting my father, meaning we stay in town for a few days. During that time, I meet Duncan's daughter, a girl named Bianca, and while out in town we come across some hooligans who are bullying a poor cat. We step in and somehow come to a formal agreement. Bianca and I shall take custody of the cat if we, small children, can clear a nearby abandoned castle of all the ghosts that are haunting it, which is what we end up spending the next few nights doing, sneaking out in the dead of night to go monster slaying. And this part of the game, like, it really sucks. Oh my god, this is an awful introduction. It's really bad. Like, okay. You see, I am 6 years old. Bianca is 8. We are babies and everything hurts. Especially since we are also broke with no equipment. Meaning I then spend the next hour using the power-up speed-up on my very real PlayStation 2 grinding for both money and XP. Mainly because the number of enemies at this stage in the game is just far too much. There are so many enemies on screen attacking us. We have like 30 HP, and we are getting attacked by, in some cases, 6 enemies at once. It's very, very poor balancing. But the game does get better after this. It's just a incredibly rough opener. When it comes to the grinding, I believe I did go a bit far. I was like level 10 by the end of this session because at that point I said, screw it, let's buy out the shop and get the best items we can. Which I did by first purchasing a boomerang, a weapon that can hit every enemy on the screen, which is very helpful when there are far too many enemies. And for anything that survives the boomerang, Bianca's got it because I gave her a whip. With these tools and levels, we return to the castle. Bianca and I shred through every ghost in our way until we arrive at the castle's heart and confront the ghost master. He loses. Badly. Never had a chance. At his defeat, he begs for his unlife, and I choose to spare him. Apparently he and the rest of his ghostly chums are demon world outcasts who just want a place to lie low. I should mention, their idea of lying low also included eating children. I was children. As the ghosts leave to hopefully find somewhere else to not eat children, the ghosts of the castle's king and queen are able to finally lay to rest. They were here the whole time and they gave us like advice and stuff. It's not that important, but because we kinda helped them out, they gift Bianca a golden orb, who then gives it to me, which I personally think is pretty lame all things considered, cause the real reward comes when we go back to Al Kappa and acquire my new cat, the newly dubbed Zorro. Just look at him, he's so cute, he's adorable. Even the Toriyama art gets this right. He's so cute. It's just a cat. A great saber cat, but like, it's a cat. Zorro also joins the party right as Bianca leaves, since my father has bested the common cold. Before we go, Bianca does hand me a ribbon to remember her by, and from there I return to my hometown of Santa Rosa with Papa's. At home, apparently Papa's has business to resolve, so I just kinda wander around town trying to find something to do. One of the first things I encounter is a fellow purple. This adult who wants to take a look at that gold ball I got, which I gladly hand over. He kinda just looks at it and then gives it back, saying it's truly special. And then he tells me, "Little boy, no matter what life brings you, never, ever give up." Thanks, I guess. I think I said something to him too, but it's really not that important. Wandering around town, I learn more about my father. People say that he's on a quest to find someone and that he has a powerful enemy. He's also clearly very well respected, and apparently there was a King Papa's at some point in the past. But that can't be my father, right? Then again, going by that dream, I was born in a castle. Before I can dwell on these thoughts further, I encounter a fairy, and am whisked away to the magical land of fairies. Apparently the season of winter can't come to an end and the fairies can't do anything about it because, well, they need a human hero who can actually fight. Enter me. The fairies need me to retrieve the stolen spring flute, of which I can only do so by learning the secret of lockpicking, breaking into this ice castle, beating up this incel robber man, yes, very true, and then fighting the witch he was simping over, allowing me to acquire the spring flute and return it. And if it sounds like I glossed over that, you really didn't miss much. That stuff kinda just happens. I was also still over-leveled from the prior thing with the castle, and the only thing of note was Zoro the cat, who I leveled up. I really did just mash the A button a whole bunch on my Nintendo Switch third-party controller. And for a good while, it does not feel important in the slightest. Though the fairies do say they'll repay my kindness and my heroism someday. We'll see how that pans out. Returning to the human world, my father takes me along on another adventure, this time to the kingdom of Reinhardt, in what he says should be our last adventure before we can settle down for a bit. Apparently the king of Reinhardt has requested that my father protect his son, Prince Henry. Sounds easy enough, so Papa's and I head over, passing through a tunnel to pass under a river, where on the other side I get uppy so I can get a good look at the river. It's pretty cute. Kinda sad though that Zoro can't see any of it. Poor little guy. But from there we arrive at Castle Reinhardt, where immediately things take a turn for the worst. As it turns out, Prince Henry is a bit of a brat, and almost as soon as my father becomes his protector, he runs away and is abducted by a gang of goons, prompting my father to give chase, abandoning me. Something to note is that when Prince Henry is abducted, my father tells me to tell no one. Nobody can know about this. We cannot raise any alarm about the situation, likely because it's my dad's first day on the job and that would be incredibly cringe. The plan is, Papa's will just bring the prince back before anyone notices. He's big and strong, we got this. And well, if my dad says so, I agree. And Zoro and I begin our own chase, following my father to a northern cave. Within it are some ruins and a hideout where I learned the nature of this kidnapping. You see, the group of men were hired by the current Queen of Reinhardt to get rid of Prince Henry, as Prince Henry is the firstborn son of the King of Reinhardt, but his mother died in childbirth, while the current queen has a son who she would rather see take the throne. Yet, the men who were charged with just straight up killing Henry decided, nah, we won't kill him. Instead, we'll sell him off to slavery for a higher reward. Which, yeah, that's... I'm very glad we can still save him. I regroup with my father, who tells me he's proud of me for fighting my way to him. Together, we find Prince Henry but are quickly swarmed by monsters. My father stays to hold them off while I take Prince Henry and run out of the cave. I do quite well, honestly, as across my few adventures, I have grown into a rather capable 6-year-old, but that growth was no match for the fiend that awaited me at the cave's entrance. Gemma. Against this fiendish spellcaster, there is little I can do. I hold out for as long as I can, but no one arrives. Prince Henry is a scared child who is easily disposed of. Zoro fights with all of his might to back me up, but I can't protect him and he collapses from the pain. I keep fighting, struggling for every last second I possibly can, burning every single spell in my body. But it was never going to be enough. I'm defeated. As I fall, my father arrives. The fiendish Gemma laughs, so excited to see him, because he's been foiling all of Gemma's schemes and slaying his minions. My father can vaguely recall seeing Gemma, but little comes to mind. And then Gemma proclaims himself as a member of the Followers of Light, calling upon 2 monsters to join him as he attacks my father. But my dad ain't no chump. Try as the monsters might, they can't beat him, prompting Gemma to try a different strategy. Taking me hostage, he holds a scythe to my throat. The message is clear. To this, my father lays down his arms while Gemma's monsters rise and proceed to beat my father. It's a slow and arduous process, but my father takes it. On his last legs, he calls out to me. I'm barely conscious, but my father hopes his words will reach me, begging me to live, to find my mother. She's still alive. This whole quest, it was all about finding her. She must be somewhere. I must find her. I must.
Find him! Save Martha!
Those are the last words of my father, as Gemma then launches a kafrizzle that incinerates my father, leaving nothing but ash. At his victory, Gemma can only laugh, and decides that killing me and Prince Henry would be boring. And besides, we'd make better slaves for his dear leader. As he stares down at my body, Gemma produces the golden orb I own, an item that serves as proof of my heroism. He marvels at it, and grateful he found it, prompting him to then smash it into dust. Gemma teleports away, taking me with him, leaving behind my cat, Zorro, who awakens to find everyone gone. And that is the end of childhood. A period of innocent and childish heroism. Being whisked away to a magical land to save it as a child, it's a classic fairy tale. Clearing a castle of ghosts and going on a trip with my dad. Everything in this chapter was a fairy tale. A happy and upbeat world that is thrown into complete and total chaos by the unfortunate rescue mission. The moment I entered that cave, the tone shifted. The color was gone from the world. The evil of man was made bare with slavery. And what follows afterwards is the dark reality of growing up as 10 long years pass, wasting away, giving labor in the construction of a grand temple. At only 16 years old now, I've been forced to grow up into adulthood. The slave camp is a rather depressing sight. Men with whips prance around, assaulting at the slightest bit of negligence. Walking around, I'm able to learn that the followers of light is what's keeping me imprisoned, all at the command of the mysterious dear leader that Gemma serves. Eventually I come across former Prince Henry, my sole friend in this den of sadness. He tells me how I feel, explaining that I've taken my father's last words to heart and that I'm on a mission to find my mother, carrying on my father's torch. We've apparently been trying to escape for years, but we've made no headway. And that's where our conversation ends, as the day also comes to an end. The next day, a new slave joins the workforce, a woman named Maria, formerly a devout follower in service of the dear leader. She was thrown here when she accidentally broke a cup. It doesn't take long for another accident to befall her, as she dropped a stone on the foot of one of the guards, and for that she was savagely whipped. Henry and I couldn't bear to watch, so we jumped into action, beating down her attackers and rescuing her. But our efforts were for naught, as after defeating the guards, we're then surrounded and promptly taken into solitary confinement. But not for long, as Maria and a guard arrive. It turns out this guard is Maria's brother, and he can't bear to keep his sister here. So after seeing us defend a woman we didn't know, the guard decides to trust us with protecting her, stuffing the two of us and his sister into a barrel and throwing us down a small river with the hope that we'll survive. We do, and the current carries us across the ocean to a small chapel, where we are discovered by some nuns and nursed back to health. It's here where we then promptly part ways with Maria, as she quickly becomes a nun, leaving Henry and myself to truly set out on an adventure. We are free men, and I have a mother to find. Our first stop is the town of Oraclebury, where we stock up on equipment and purchase a carriage. It's here where I also learn of my own innate ability for monster wrangling. Yeah, I can recruit monsters by just beating them up. This is one of the unique Dragon Quest V things, and since party members in this game are a bit limited, the party was given the power to recruit enemies. There's no like catching system or negotiation mechanic like in say Pokemon or SMT. You just need to be higher leveled than one of the 70 recruitable monsters and beat them up. Then they have a random chance of joining you. I should also mention that this game predates the big Pikachu craze. I quickly acquire a few monsters in the form of a brownie and a slime. They don't stick around for too long. I do a bit of leveling up to get Henry and the monsters to a state where a light breeze won't kill them. And from there our next destination is my hometown, which has seen better days. The place is in ruins. Apparently Gemma arrived here not long after killing my father and laid waste to the village. He was apparently searching for something. What that something is, I don't know if he acquired it or not. But by exploring the ruins and venturing into a cave, I find a secret room my father created. Within this room is the Heavenly Sword, a fragment of the Forgotten Past, known in the official release as the Zenithian Blade, weapon of the legendary hero Furcus who slew the Manslayer centuries ago. It's heavy, and I'm incapable of wielding it. That's a shame. Next, I find a letter from my father, where he tells me that in the event of his death, I must go forth and continue his quest. Find my mother, Martha. Save Martha. She had mysterious powers, and for those powers she was taken by the clutches of evil, because they can somehow benefit the demon world, which must be where my mother is. To save my mother, I need to find the legendary hero, a person capable of donning both the heavenly sword and the heavenly equipment. That's what my father was setting out to do all those years ago. Find the legendary hero, find him his equipment, and use them to save my mother. Also, yeah, I did learn how to read. I assume from slave school. With this new sense of purpose, Henry and I travel westward towards Alpaca, where from the townsfolk we learn that Henry's kingdom of Reinhardt is gearing up for world domination, all due to Reinhardt's brother and the Queen Mother. They're even cutting off all sea travel, meaning we can't leave the continent to continue my quest. We rest at the inn, and in the dead of night, Reinhardt confides in me that he wants to return home and set things right, asking if he can count on my assistance, which of course he can. He's helped me get this far, and I've known the guy for 10 years. So that's the new goal. We travel back to Reinhardt, passing through the same tunnel I did so with my father so many years ago. Arriving in Reinhardt, the kingdom is in an even sorrier state than it was before. There's a poor person here, so at least 10% of the town's population lives in abject squalor. 1/5 of the population if I include the lady's son. The castle, however, tells a more worrisome story, as the place is full of enlisted monsters who are ready to conquer the world, and we aren't allowed to see the king, Henry's brother. He isn't taking visitors, and truthfully, the king isn't doing much of anything, as according to the castle's staff, the king's mother holds the real power, and she is pulling all the strings around here. With this information, Henry and I break into the castle through a hidden underground escape route, where along the way we uncover the king's mother, locked in a cell. Apparently she was replaced by a lookalike, but to prove that she's the real mother, she admits that 10 years ago, she hired thugs to murder Prince Henry and ensure her son's rise. Only she would do that, a monster never could. Naturally, we don't free her. Instead, I find a slime knight down here who is the most reliable guy in the game. Pierre, as he's initially called, will be quickly renamed to Slight, the Slime Knight, and he's got my back for the rest of the adventure. After acquiring him, Henry and I make it into the castle proper, where we walk up the stairs and find ourselves before Henry's brother. He's reasonably terrified of all the monsters in his castle, and is more than willing to give power back to his older brother. But first, we must unveil the Queen Mother for what she truly is. So Henry and I are gifted a magic key that'll open doors in the castle to give us helpful treasure, and will grant us access to a teleporter that takes us to the Tower of God. We need to go into the tower because in a very Dragon Quest III sort of way, it apparently has a mirror that will reveal one's true face, which would be helpful in unveiling what the king's mother actually is. Unfortunately, to open up the Tower of God, Henry and I require a woman of God, a nun as they're known. If only we knew one who owes us a favor.
Maria.
Returning to the Abbey, which is actually like 2 minutes from the Tower of God, we explain the whole situation to Maria and she's more than eager to help, joining the party and opening the way for us, allowing us to ascend the tower. It's full of monsters and there's 2 little puzzles in here that are kinda neat. In the first one, you have to use the 3Dness to realize, oh, that's not a drop-off, I can walk on the edge to go around. That's very cool. And number 2 is an invisible bridge where Maria's party talk clues me in on it being a test of faith. You have to not walk in the middle. Also, I'll mention it now, but you'll hear more of it later. The party talk in this game is the best I've seen in any Dragon Quest I've played. So much personality is given to the characters through it. It always updates based on the things I do, interact with, or walk past. It's so neat. And because of party talk, I have acquired the Mirror of Ra. Returning to Reinhardt Castle, in the Queen's bedroom, I find Henry's brother. He is in a deadlock with his mother, both of them. Turns out he went to go free the mother in the basement, but then immediately got confused as to which mother is actually his mother. So I walk over, bonk both queens with the mirror, and oh, hey look, a fake queen. Henry and I quickly enter thug mode and beat the fake queen to death by just wailing on her, saving the kingdom. Though interestingly, upon saving the kingdom, Henry doesn't become king, instead deciding to become his brother's advisor, because he's taken a liking to being second in command after traveling with me for so long. But this does mean he will be leaving the party. Maria as well, because she wants to stay in Reinhardt for a bit before heading back to the Abbey, leaving me with my monsters to continue my travels. My next destination is Port Vista. It's the place where the game began, it's where the boat my father and I were docked came off of, and previously travel was on hold because of the world domination plans, but I just fixed that, allowing me to board a ship for the western continent, where I then arrive at Port Selmy and quickly find work. Apparently a wild beast is terrorizing the village of Squashton, so I travel to a cave near the village where a beast is held up, and in what starts out as a very climactic battle against a beast turns joyous, as I recognize the beast. It's my friend, my goat, my boy, Zoro, the saber cat all grown up. Look at him, he's awesome! And throughout the battle, I can't hurt him, and he only attacks if I attack. The battle text also informs me that Zoro is trying to remember, cluing me in on the need to jog his memory. So I run from the fight, thank goodness, dig through my bag and find Bianca's ribbon, an old keepsake. That in hand, I confront Zoro and the ribbon reminds him of who I am, our history, what we used to be. He promptly stops fighting and rejoins my side as a faithful companion. He even comes with a gift, handing me Papa's sword, my father's weapon. Zoro's been protecting it for ever since the incineration incident. What a good little guy. With the threat of the beast quelled, I go to the village that hired me and am not met with a hero's return. Instead, I'm met with scorn, as the villagers all berate me and call me a great con man. All of them are under the assumption I sent Zoro to terrorize them, in order to then play the hero card and earn some easy money. They still give me the money I was promised, mainly out of fear that I'd unleash Zoro again. Which, damn, okay. You try to do something nice. Oh well. Zoro and I leave, and travel further west, acquiring the zoom spell along the way from an old man and his hotbox. Eventually arriving in the town of Sarbona, where I learn of a wealthy man named Mr. Ludman, who's in possession of the Heavenly Shield, which the legendary hero will need once I find them, meaning that acquiring that shield has become my new mission. A mission that will quickly evolve into marriage. You see, it turns out Mr. Ludman is going to marry off his daughter, Flora, looks like this, to whichever man can acquire the water and fire rings, Both rings are in very dangerous locations. For example, the fire ring is literally in a volcano. Many suitors are burned. Yet beyond getting the ability to marry his blue daughter, Mr. Ludman will also give the winning suitor some of his former fortune, and most importantly, the Heavenly Shield. I don't care much for Flora. Yes, pretty, but the shield is what I'm after, and I'm sure my father would understand the lengths I must go through. So I braved the volcano for the fire ring, which ends up being pretty easy. There was just like a lizard down there. After giving Mr. Ludman the ring, he takes a liking to me and sees me as the only viable suitor, prompting him to give me a ship that I can use to set sail in search of the water ring. For about 5 seconds, as there's a water gate stopping me from progressing further, I disembark at the nearest shore and follow a trail to an unnamed mountain village in hopes of unlocking the gate, where I then have a chance re-encounter with Bianca, the girl who helped me explore the haunted castle, the reason why I was able to save Zoro. She's here. Apparently her mother died some years back after they moved here, but her father Duncan is still around, and she's ecstatic to see me, claiming that she always held out hope that I somehow survived both the destruction of Santa Prisa and the disappearance of my father. I stay the night, regaling her with the stories of what I've been through in the last 10 years, along with letting her re-meet Zoro. It's honestly a really lovely moment of joy. Then come morning, Bianca inquires about my current adventure, saying she'll help me open the water gate and then excitedly joins me on this adventure, because if you'll recall, when we were kids, I promised that I would take her on another adventure. So with Bianca by my side, I return to the water gate and push her up the boat. She opens the water gate in a very cinematic scene. And honestly, it seems like this that really tell you that the design of the world and the environment of Dragon Quest V really do hold up. Visually, I just love the environment and everything to do with this game's style. Aside from maybe the main characters, they look a bit off, but all the NPCs are just Dragon Quest pixel art brought to 3D and it's perfect. After sailing past the water gate, I crash us into a suspicious looking waterfall. Hey, look at that, secret cave. Where at the bottom of it, I acquire the water ring. Now, I didn't really capture footage of this since, well, for most of the playthrough, I very rarely recorded the dungeon crawling. But specifically, this dungeon was very enjoyable, mainly because of Bianca's presence. All of her party chat. I just love that in Bianca's dialogue, she has a country accent, and marvels at just about everything we come across. On top of that, she's having fun throughout the exploration, and that's really cool. It really adds to the world and characterizes Bianca so well. It makes the world feel like it's full of so much wonder and joy. But, as this is Dragon Quest V, there's a hint of sorrow in her dialogue. Specifically when, as we get closer and closer to the ring, Bianca hints at her feelings towards the protagonist, in uneasiness as they get closer and closer to the ring, which will grant me, the protag, the ability to marry Flora. After leaving the cave, we return to Sarbona. I step into Ludman's manor, and Bianca tells me to get on with it. We did so much to get the ring after all. But then she mentions that even her heart is thumping. Approaching Mr. Ludman, I hand over the water ring, and he prepares to arrange my marriage to his daughter. Yet Flora spots Bianca, recognizing her unease, asking if she's in love with me, and then asking me if I'm in love with her. Going on to say that if I harbor feelings for Bianca, that would doom the marriage between me and her. Mr. Ludman, hearing this, decides that he'll give me the day to think it over. Do I want to marry Flora or Bianca? Regardless of my choice, Mr. Ludman agrees to arrange my marriage, mainly because he's grown fond of me and my ability. After all, getting those rings would have been next to impossible for any normal person. Night comes and I'm separated from Bianca. However, I'm restless, and in the dead of night, I wander around Sarbona to try and get my thoughts in order. Hear multiple opinions. People tell me that Flora will make a perfect wife. She's the epitome of a true lady. But on the other hand, Bianca has so many charms, and even without the refined grace of Flora, she has her own kind of grace and she'll do just as well in life. I even get a chance to speak with Bianca, who tells me not to worry about her because I already decided to marry Flora when I set out for the rings. Plus, she's been practically alone her whole life. It won't affect her too much. Once everyone is spoken to, I return to bed with my thoughts. I went through all of this to complete my father's mission, find the legendary hero, save my mother, to which I need the heavenly shield, and to acquire it I was going to marry Flora, without any regard for her. I don't care about Flora. I feel nothing towards that stranger. Yes, I briefly saw her when I was a kid, but that was for 5 seconds. Bianca, she pledged to help me on my mission. Bianca knows what I've been through. Bianca is here for me. She's funny. Bianca is the one I choose. I choose Bianca over the mission, and I know Papas would approve. Subjecting Flora to a loveless marriage for the sake of the shield isn't worth it. So that's what I tell Mr. Ludman, and he's oddly receptive to me rejecting his daughter, saying that he honestly did expect me to choose Bianca. Besides, he can always find another suitor for Flora, and that suitor will make me regret choosing Bianca. But it's all in good fun, and a wedding shortly follows. Bianca is garbed in a divine white dress, while I am there. This fit is legit, I suppose. And I walk with the hand of my heavenly bride to the church. Along the way, seeing that my friend Henry and his new wife Maria have arrived in time to see my wedding. As we step into the cathedral, the wedding proceeds without any incident. It's a moment of pure joy, refined happiness that is well needed for the protag, as his relatively short life has been full of misery. It's hard to believe that less than a year ago, I was enslaved. In this act, in this joyous celebration of love, I've truly stepped away from childhood into adulthood. I know my purpose. I have a mission. I have a wife. I have a life. The life that was taken and stolen through the evil of Gemma. Bit by bit, the protagonist managed to regain that. Their still in childhood isn't holding them back. Come the next day, I'm before Mr. Ludman, who offers me a few wedding gifts, namely passage to his casino ship for my honeymoon, which also comes with a free ship, some money, and advice to go on a whole nostalgia tour. But most surprisingly, I'm gifted the Heavenly Shield, as Mr. Ludman approves of my quest to find the legendary hero, imploring me to continue, but to first enjoy life, starting the next chapter of my adventure alongside my wife Bianca, making memories for the next year. I should say I am basing that statement off a future implication, but I believe that by this point in the game, it has been 1 year since I escaped slavery, and the next chapter of my journey will also take roughly 1 year. Now, I'll speed through what I do next, which is mainly just spreading the good word of being a wife-haver. I tell Bianca's dad. He's absolutely ecstatic. He's glad that, well, after he's gone, someone can protect Bianca. I tell Henry and Maria, and they're just supportive and, well, they want to have dinner sometime. It's nice to have friends. Then I go on my big nostalgia tour, taking Bianca back to the village of Alpaca, where we first met. I show her the ruins of Santa Prisa, and I go back to the old ghost castle we cleared out. I sail around the ocean for a bit, visit a mini metal lord whose services I never use. I become the sole owner of an empty museum, a museum I don't stock, making this ghost very sad. I share a tender moment with Bianca in bed, and then I go to the casino ship, where Bianca and I have a real blast, especially when I win the lamest hand of poker and proceed to use the time warping capabilities of the Luminary to always choose the correct card in a game of higher or lower, allowing my pitiful winnings to double every single time until I eventually reach the coin limits, which I then use to buy Bianca a very good whip. I actually buy several for some extra spending money, as well as a couple wonderful swords. Though I don't equip one since the boomerang I've been using since the very start still seems better, but with the whip Bianca's usefulness, much like in childhood, has increased. After my time shenanigans on the casino boat, I decide to head to the southeastern continent and climb a mountain with Bianca doing her best to keep up. I really like this area visually. It's just so rugged with the constantly rising and lowering elevation. It really does make you turn and tilt the camera to see where to go. It's a camera puzzle, I think, and it makes really good use of the three-dimensionality of the whole thing. However, after climbing the mountain and arriving in the mountain village of Chizat, Bianca collapses. Quickly, I take her to the nearby inn to recover, with Bianca apologizing and saying that she was more tired than she expected, even laughing it off by saying that she scored us a free room with that little stunt. At least she's upbeat, but I'm certainly worried. As we walk around town, I start to learn about the nearby kingdom of Granvania. Apparently it's known for its journey of the cursed king who set off on a quest to locate his missing queen, but never returned. I also learned that the missing queen of Granvania was named Martha, and she had the power to pass through to the demon world. Which then reminds me of my father's letter, where he wrote that my mother's strange abilities is what prompted her disappearance. And when I was a child, the townsfolk of Santa Prisa gossiped about my father, Lord Papas, wondering if he was a king. My next objective is clear. Go to Granvania and see if I can learn about my history, a goal that Bianca urges me to complete. So I enter a cave and trek down the mountain towards Granvania. When I arrive, it's truthfully the first kingdom that feels like a kingdom. The walls are tall, and the kingdom's people are kept safe within the walls. Apparently the missing King Papas was the only monarch in the world who thought of doing that to protect his people. Walking around the kingdom and talking to whoever I can, I learned that the missing King Papas left on a never-ending quest to find the legendary hero to save his queen Martha after she was kidnapped by monsters. Apparently he chose to leave his younger brother Ogiron as leader, and refused any aid from the kingdom to join him on his quest, because the quest itself didn't have any end in sight. Therefore, he left Granvania in a three-man squad, one consisting of himself, his squire Sancho, and of course, his infant son, Edwin. I actually remember Sancho. It was in his house where we stayed when we lived in Santa Prisa. He apparently still lives in Granvania and has fallen into a bit of a depression ever since my father and I vanished 11 years ago. Sancho's home is rather troublesome, as I make the idiot mistake of looking inside the castle where the townsfolk live. It turns out Sancho lives outside the castle walls, but still within the outer walls. And like, I'll be honest, this just looks ugly. The house here just looks ugly. But whatever. Sancho waits inside. The first moments are tense, as Sancho, upon seeing my face, he goes pale. Disbelief washes over him, but then he realizes there can be no mistake. It's me, the little master. Sancho is overwhelmed by my survival and is sent over the moon when he recognizes Bianca, who has become my wife. Quickly, he takes me to see King Ogiron, my uncle and the current king of Granvania, who's actually pretty chill. Upon seeing me, he's overjoyed that his brother's son is still alive. Even Bianca gets good vibes from him, and I trust her opinion. Bianca has once again fallen over. She's taken into a bedroom and looked over by a physician, who isn't concerned about her condition. Instead, I'm the one who gets a stern talking to. Like, what was I thinking? Making a pregnant woman climb a mountain? Shame on me. But that's right. Fatherhood. Talking to Bianca, she reveals that she's known about her pregnancy for a while, but didn't tell me out of concern for our adventure. She's been having the time of her life and was worried that I would abandon my journey and settle down if I knew she was pregnant. But, like, would that really be such a bad thing? Regardless, in her current state, she can't go off gallivanting with me, and tells me that she'll stay here in Granvania to give birth to our child before then drifting off to sleep. I head downstairs and speak to my uncle Ogiron to continue our conversation, and he immediately abdicates his throne to me, much to the surprise of his chancellor. Apparently, my uncle has just never liked being king. He doesn't vibe with it and doesn't think he's well suited for it, opting to return to the life of a carefree prince with his daughter, being more than willing to shove all that responsibility onto his 17-year-old nephew who just walked out of the woods. Honestly, kinda based. We here on the Zamen channel respect a man who knows his place. I graciously accept the offer because it'll make everyone happy. Except the Chancellor, who scrambles for a way to oppose me, claiming that King Ojiron can't just hand over the throne to me without me proving my capability in some way. Which does make sense, he is handing over a country. So I'm then tasked with following the ancient kingly tradition of my people by venturing into the Cave of Trials and retrieving a royal emblem. Accepting the task, I head out and board my ship to travel to the other side of the world. Yeah, I'll be honest, I stumbled onto the main plot and did not get a chance to explore this southwestern desert continent. Turns out, that continent has a country that possesses the Heavenly Helm. Neat. And that's about all I missed out on. So I return to Granvania and then head to the Cave of Trials to prove my right to dominate as a king. Entering the Cave of Trials, I'm being backed up by my goats Zoro and Slight the God King Slime Knights. I find it to be a rather straightforward dungeon with a few simple puzzles about turning these statues to face each other. It's really not that tough, and within 10 minutes I reach the end and snag the royal emblem. Yippee! As I leave, I'm jumped as apparently someone put out a hit on me. Though the people they hired weren't very good, as the would-be assassins are mercilessly slaughtered by Slight the Slime Knight. They, like most enemies in the game, really can't stand up to the attack button. Returning to Granvania, I'm received warmly by my uncle who congratulates me, declaring that tomorrow he'll arrange a coronation. The Chancellor then pipes up and says he'll arrange a royal ceremony, and runs off to sort that out. Before I have time to further dwell on that though, a maid runs in and informs me that Bianca is about to give birth, leaving me to contemplate in the throne room as I just pace and pace. Much like my father did when I was born. Sancho even makes this comparison. But in a matter of minutes, I'm called up and it's twins. A baby boy and a baby girl. Bianca then asks if she did a good job. Which, of course she did. She's incredible. Then I'm asked to name them. So allow me to introduce you to Prince Surf and Princess Schmoopy. Bianca says the names are unusual, but wonderful nonetheless. Surf is a reference to the first D&D character I ever played. He also briefly appeared in this video, while Schmoopy it's this thing. I personally like it a lot. But with that, the news of my approaching ascension to kinghood spreads through Granvania, as well as news of the new royal twins, resulting in a joyous celebration the next day as I am crowned the new king of Granvania. A ceremony that quickly turns into a massive rager, where come nightfall the whole kingdom is down for the count with multiple cases of alcohol poisoning. I then awaken and, sensing something wrong, ascend the castle to check in on Bianca and the babies. But when I arrive, Bianca is gone. A maid tells me that Bianca got a bad feeling and instructed her to take the kids and hide. Bianca was kidnapped by monsters. The king of Granvania's wife has been kidnapped. Right after the birth of their children. Like some dude once said, it's like poetry. It rhymes. Sancho further hammers this in as he is beside himself that this could have happened again. And it's his line here that makes me think everything since I escaped slavery has taken place over the course of 2 years. Cause we gotta consider that there's at least 9 months of the twins growing in Bianca. So 1 year pre-marriage and 1 year post-marriage makes the 16-year-old protag 18 years old. And 18 is a nicer number to round to 20 instead of 16. Where was I? Oh yeah.
I miss my wife tales.
Morning arrives before we can figure out where the monsters went, so a roundtable meeting is held, and the absence and disappearance of the Chancellor makes us realize that he must have snuck in a sleeping potion into the alcohol we all had at the massive rager yesterday. Unlike what my father did, the kingdom has its full resources extended to find Bianca. But as Sancho quickly realizes, that isn't enough for me. I need to get involved. So once the meeting ends, I stand and begin to walk out of the castle. Sancho stops me, begging me for the sake of my children to let the soldiers handle it. Stay and protect them. But Bianca is out there. How could I ever stay put? I understand Sancho's fears, and wordlessly produce the heavenly sword, leaving it here in the castle. The divine power within this blade will be my children's sentinel of the starry night skies, while I go off to save their mother. My long investigation on this wonderful Dragon Quest V GameFAQs walkthrough takes me to a tower due north of Granvania, where the Chancellor was last seen traveling among monsters. It's an imposing tower, but with Zoro and Slight by my side, we raid it, even coming across the Chancellor who lay dying after being betrayed by the monsters he sold the kingdom out to. Good riddance, I suppose. Slaying every monster in sight, opening doorways to access higher and higher levels, until eventually I reach the peak where I face off against the fearsome level 20 Orc and level 35 Chimera, who are pushovers. I hit them several times and occasionally heal. Leading me into the heart of the tower where Bianca is being held by Jamie, who is also one of the 3 monsters who murdered my father. Bianca then explains that they kidnapped her to lure me here to kill me, and before she can tell me more, Jamie blasts her with lightning as I attack Jamie. Yet despite my fervor, my attacks are dulled, limp, and incapable of causing him meaningful harm. But even so, I'll shred through his HP one at a time if I need to. Thankfully, that's not a requirement, as Bianca rises to her feet and unleashes a divine light onto Jamie, shattering the magical barrier that was protecting him from damage, allowing my monsters and I to beat him within an inch of his life, just like he did to Lord Papa's. As Jamie begins to die, he stumbles back in disbelief of Bianca, realizing that the divine light she unleashed is exactly like that of the legendary hero of the past. Bianca is a luminary of the legendary line, a descendant of the legendary hero Furcus who overcame the machinations of the Manslayer. With Jamie's actual dying breath, he summons Gemma, the foul mage who ruined my life, who is equally smackledorfed by Bianca, because according to prophecy by his lord Mildraff, the descendants of the legendary hero were of noble birth. In fact, his disgust takes him to such a realm of revelation that he claims there's no way the legendary hero could come from Bianca's filthy bloodline, because he's gonna end it here and now by turning Bianca and I into stone. Gemma sadistically laughs at Bianca and I's predicament, finding it hysterical that we'll be able to watch as the world is destroyed, unable to do anything. And he's right. In my petrified state, I can do nothing but watch as Gemma leaves. Days pass as Bianca and I lie in silence, only for it to be disturbed by 2 petty thieves who find us and steal us, thinking we'll fetch a hefty price. Back at the castle, King Ogiron and Sancho can only put Prince Surf and Princess Schmoopy on the throne, as they pace and pace trying to find a way to find me. A lead eventually comes through, with people having seen me north of Granvania approaching the tower. Elsewhere, at an auction, I'm sold off for 20,000 gold, while Bianca is kept in custody of the thieves who have other plans for her, resulting in us being separated. Taken to my new owner's home, I'm set up in front of his lawn as his family's guardian statue, their protector. There, I even get to see the owner's son, Gigio, grow up, watching the kid take his first steps, watching him play with his parents. I watch this random family grow up, while I'm separated from my kids and my wife, and I'm forced to miss out on their lives. Yet tragedy strikes years later, as Gigio is abducted by monsters, ripped from his mother's hands and taken to become a slave, just like me, when I was 6. An event so traumatic my buyer takes out his rage on me, beating my stone body senseless and knocking it over, ending the chapters of this worthless chosen. Until 8 long years pass, Sancho arrives, followed by 2 small children, a boy and a girl. Upon seeing me, the little girl produces a staff and dispels the stone, returning me to life, saving me. I haven't aged a day, but I've been awake the whole time. Sancho is beside himself with joy upon seeing me, and then beckons the 2 kids to introduce themselves.
So you're the one who named me.
Surf and Schmoopy, my children, the seeds of my salvation. Surf tells me that the world's in bad shape and they want us to work together to beat up all the bad guys. He even lets me in on a little secret. He can wield the heavenly sword. Surf is the legendary hero my father and I spent our lives looking for. Not his mom or his twin sister. Legendary hero is a boy-exclusive class, which, historically, checks out. Regardless, the final leg of my quest is a family epic. With my children and Uncle Sancho at my back, it's time to find Mom and Grandma. Our first lead comes from Uncle Ogiron, who tells me that Lord Papas originally spirited my mother away from her village, known as El Haven, a secretive place in the far north. Apparently him leaving with her was considered quite taboo by the village. Though before I head there, I decide to go on a world tour with my kids to check up on old friends. Plus give the kids some authentic combat experience since, well, they are 8 years old. They are babies. And level 5. I mean, Bianca and I were both level 1 at ages 6 and 8 respectively, so clearly they're prodigies, but they are babies. I mean, Surf, he is the legendary hero, but he's not smart enough to equip the dang sword. And Schmoopy has glass bones and paper skin. Sancho is pretty solid though. I especially love all of Sancho's party talk. And the kids are just the cutest thing in the world. These little cutie patooties are gonna kill Satan. Also, yes, I know I could use the zoom spell, but I think sailing is more fun, and the battles are a better opportunity for the kids to grow strong without feeling too much like mindless grinding. After all, a lot of it is about having like a goal in mind. My first destination is the land of Telpador, because they have something that belongs to my son. Years ago, I came here and failed to don the heavenly helm, but my son is born different. The helm magically shrinks to fit him perfectly. Afterwards, I show my kids the horrors of war by taking them to go see Santa Prisa, where they do not have fun, and the trend continues as I took them to Reinhardt to check in on my homie Henry. Apparently he and I were just in sync since his kid Collins is the same age as Surf and Schmoopy. Truthfully, I'm more hurt by the fact that Henry didn't go out and look for me. Like, 8 years is a while. Afterwards, I traveled to Sarbona to see how Mr. Ludman and Flora are doing. They're relieved to see me alive, but there's apparently a more pressing concern because Mr. Ludman is absolutely terrified about something. So he begs me to go investigate a jar up north to see if it's red. Unfortunately, he didn't give me a key to see his jar, so I go open up a museum for all the junk I've been collecting. It's very neat, but I'm not interested in 100% completion and end up going back to the main story, finding myself in a place called El Haven, my mother Martha's birthplace. It's home to the Loftians, people who in ancient times were chosen by the Master Dragon to watch over the portal to Nadira, the demon world. Talking around the village, I learned a lot about my origins, learning that my father Lord Papas strolled into town, swept my mother up, and eloped with her soon after. Which kinda major sucked for the village of El Haven because the people who were descended by the ones chosen by God to watch over the portal to hell could no longer do portal to hell based things. The only one who could actually do so was Martha. And for that reason, the people in El Haven hate my father, but they don't believe in sins of the father, so the kids and I are accepted. However, aside from learning of all this history, I don't really get any clear clues that might help me find Bianca, or my mother. I do end up stealing a magic carpet and a magic key, which will likely come in handy as I go explore the overworld without fear of random encounters. Cause that's what the magic carpet does. You just go, whoosh, whoom, wah. So cue me doing laps around the planet until I come across Heaven's Tower, or the Stairway to Zenithia, depending on your version. but it's really just an old, poorly maintained ruin. There's nothing really magical about it. The place is in complete disrepair. Even still, there might be something here. After all, my kids are like 1/1,000,000th of the Heavenly Hero, and, well, the Heavenly Hero was half heavenly, so maybe there's something. Lots of monster mashing later, and we reach the peak, where an old heavenly folk awaits. He expresses shock that we actually climbed the tower, but informs us that in the old days, if you climbed Heaven's Tower, you would be allowed to enter Heaven's Castle proper. But currently that's impossible because Heaven's Castle has crashed into the bottom of a lake. The once illustrious flying castle is now nothing more than an echo of an elusive age. However, according to the old man, by using this magma staff, there is a way to reach Heaven's Castle, through a cavernous path. Good to know, but unfortunately the heavenly man is gone before I can thank him. Yet with staff in hand, I actually know of a pretty ordinary rock. It's just up the river from Granvania, so we set sail and then I give my daughter the staff. Though she's more curious about developing cankles in her legs because my cousin imparted that fear onto her. With staff in hand, Schmoopy is able to terraform the planet and grant us passage into a cave full of minecarts. It's a really fun dungeon actually. I enjoy using the minecarts to, well, delve deeper and deeper, eventually riding a minecart to the Heavenly Castle, which is partially flooded but still standing. Oh, and along the way I found this guy named Pusan. I wasn't recording at the time, but he's here now. He's a bit kooky and kind of just wanders around on his own, like he owns the place. I think he's crazy. The family then explores the Heavenly Castle. The place, much like the Heaven's Tower, is in complete disrepair, not to mind the water damage. It's a sorry sight, one that tells how dire the situation must be. There's also no heavenly folk in sight, making it seem like the place is already long dead. But we have to find something. And, well, I don't find anything, but Pusan does, as he clues me into a secret staircase behind the empty throne of Master Dragon, leading us to the Heavenly Castle's cockpit. Apparently, in order for the magical place to fly, it requires 2 golden orbs. But according to Pusan, 20 years ago, dark clouds attacked the castle and caused one of the golden orbs to roll out of a newly made hole. That orb then fell down to the continent, where it coincidentally fell the very same night Bianca and I cleared the haunted castle. The golden orb that Bianca found was not a gift from the ghosts of the king and queen. No, the golden orb fell from Heaven's Castle and landed by her feet. She just gave it to me. But wait, that golden orb was destroyed by Gemma after he murdered my father. That must have been why he expressed surprise towards it. He knew it was important. It turns out that scene was broadcasted to my entire family. Sancho and my kids were able to observe the death of Papa's, and they all comment on it. Surf can't believe that actually happened, while Schmoopy is worried and asks if I'm alright because I went pale. And Sancho merely weeps. According to Pusan though, it's not over yet because the Fairy Queen could possibly help us make a new orb. So my kids and I cash in my favor with the fairy world. Remember way back when? That time where I saved the land of fairies by finding a flute? Yeah, this is where that comes into play. As thanks to that good deed, I'm able to learn the location of the Queen of Fairies' castle, which did involve a magic stick, but the details aren't very important. At the Queen of Fairies' place, I'm informed that the Queen can't make a new orb. It's next to impossible to make a floating rock. The best she can give me is making a convincing looking fake, so that's a bummer. Is what I think until she reveals that she can send me back in time to swap the fake orb with the real orb. Which is when I remember something. The purple stranger I spoke to when I was 6. I wear purple. Hey, I heard about you. The lady in the church said you're handsome. Huh, that gem you're carrying around looks so mysterious. So this is called a golden orb? Mind if I take a look at that orb? What? You want me to show you the pretty treasure I carry around? Yeah, okay. You don't seem like a bad person, but only for a little bit, okay?
Edwin hands over the orb.
What a fine quality jewel. Thanks, I appreciate it.
Edwin switched the gold orb.
Edwin receives the gold orb!
Cool, huh? It's an amazingly pretty treasure. How thoughtful of your father to give this to you, young one. Oh, one more thing. Little boy, no matter what life brings you, never, ever give up. Yeah, no matter what tough things come my way, I won't give up. Let's go, Zoro! After retrieving the orb, I decide to delay returning the Heavenly Castle to its sky-based glory. You see, Mr. Ludman is probably more important, so using the magic key I found in El Haven, I decide to go find out what the deal is with Mr. Ludman's jar. It's down a really long staircase, and it's kinda evil looking. Also, it's red. That's not a good sign. Did I mention that it looks evil? So I head back to Mr. Ludman, who is on a nearby guard tower, and he tells me that this is basically the end. We are all going to die because the jar is red. Which means that a terrifying monster that was sealed 150 years ago by his great-great-great-great-great-grandfather, and I did the math, that's 8 generations, which means that on average his family was having kids the moment they all turned 19. And my family is just like him. Continuing on, Mr. Ludman says that the terrible monster will be unleashed any minute now. He tells me to keep an eye on things up here while he goes and rallies the town's defenses. However, as soon as he leaves, the jar shatters. And... I'm gonna have a bad time. Buon the Behemoth is my opponent, and by size alone, he is one of the largest Dragon Quest bosses in history. He's also by far the best fight in this game, and you might have noticed, but throughout the video, I really haven't mentioned gameplay much, or talked about bosses and strategies I used to beat them. Mainly cause I have not needed strategy up until now. The Dragon Quest series is capable of some pretty wonderful bosses. This game, unfortunately, does not include any of them. Listen, I'm a Dragon Quest fan. Before this, I played 7, 8, 9 on my 3DS. And I played Dragon Quest 11 and 3 HD on my Switch. Plus Chrono Trigger. I've seen good gameplay. But for 5, the battles in 5 are kinda just like an A button mashing simulator. But Buon is built different. He makes me strategize and had me on the ropes multiple times because of 3 big reasons. Number 1, he's big. Obviously, he hits hard and has a lot of HP. Number 2, he actually makes good use of debuffs, with Kasap and clearing any buff I come up with. And number 3, he can occasionally chain his party-wide attacks together, which is very deathly if Surf can't throw up the Insulate spell. And because of the randomness of the turn order, it can cause Buon to act first occasionally. With those 3 factors, this battle becomes a delicate dance of managing my buffs and deciding my priorities between healing, buffing, debuffing, and sinking in attacks. It's a fight so good, I actually lost the first time I battled it because I made a really bad play. Surf had gone down and Shmoopy and Sancho were both low on HP. I elected to risk everything on a 50% zing on Surf instead of trying to use Kerplunk to restore everyone at the cost of my life. Which just goes to show that I felt my kids weren't worth my life. Take 2. On the run back, my family is able to slaughter Buon with more cautious gameplay and limited risk-taking. From his corpse, I acquire the final key, granting me access to what lies beyond every door. Oh, and Mr. Ludman congratulates me on defeating his generational foe. A monetary reward would have been nice, but whatever, I guess I already own a castle in Granvania. What more could I ask for? Speaking of castles, I need to go back to a wet one and unwet it. So with orb in hand, my family and I return to the Heavenly Castle's underground room, where we slot an orb into place. returning the castle to its rightful place in the skies, which grants me control over my own flying fortress. I then use said flying fortress to soar over to the Tower of Bow Bell, because according to a heavenly folk, the Master Dragon, ruler of the heavenly castle, is sealed in this tower, and if I want to find my wife, he'll likely be essential. So the family drops down and storms the tower, solving a couple of bridge-based puzzles and beginning a hunt for Dragon Eyes, special gemstones that'll slot into place in this big statue. The big statue will then likely open up whatever is sealing Master Dragon. Both Dragon Eyes are actually in the tower's basement, where the first one is guarded by Gonze, one of the monsters who beat my father to death. Both Dragon Eyes are in the tower's basement, where the first one is guarded by Gonze, one of the monsters who beat my father to death. He's slain in under a minute. But beyond him is Gemma, who immediately attacks, throwing me into the game's second challenging battle. Listen, Gemma hits hard, and I need to fight him slowly so I don't tumble into his fireballs. Yet, it's never too dire unlike Buon. Gemma, dies eventually. Or not. As upon defeat, Gemma laughs at the futility of killing him, saying it's not enough, though he does express regret over not killing me and then leaves to report this to the Demon King Mildrath, leaving everyone burning with hatred. At least behind Gemma was the second and final Dragon Eye. Both eyes in my possession, I return upstairs and slot them into the statue, allowing me to descend to the tower's heart and acquire the Dragon Orb, which doesn't turn into a dragon. Alright, in that case, I zoom over to the Heavenly Castle, because maybe one of the Heavenly Folk can tell me what to do with this. Climbing out of the cockpit and into the throne room, I find Pusan at the mercy of the Heavenly Folk, who are asking the question I've been dying to know this entire time. Who the heaven is this guy? Apparently the Heavenly Folk have never had a person named Pusan in their history, so he is heavenly sus. I approach and Pusan compliments the bravery of my family, then asking for the Dragon Orb, which, yeah, I just handed over. I don't really have any attachment to this thing, it's not gold, and I didn't go back in time for it. As Pusan takes hold of the orb, he glows and transforms into returning Dragon Quest IV character and actual magical lizard, Master Dragon, who, fun fact, in the DS remake, his human name is Dr. Aegon. That is amazing. Apparently he's been observing humans as a human and is pained by how peace has been denied once again due to the actions of, get this, yet another Demon King. This Demon King Mildrath, who's been trying to invade the world by opening a gate between the demon world and the human world. A gate that's been gradually widening. Yet Master Dragon isn't afraid or despaired because he has high hopes in my family and believes that we are more than capable of stopping this. For that reason, he offers his taxi service to us, giving Surf the Heavenly Bell, which will allow us to ride upon his back. And that's where he stops talking, leaving it up to me to figure out where to go next. Of course, Master Dragon lets us fly just about anywhere, but there's a whole map to explore. Thankfully, party chat comes in clutch, and Shmoopy tells me of a dream she had of her mother locked away in a high place. And when it comes to high places, there's really only one place I can think of, besides, the volcano. It's in the center of the map, the place where my adulthood began, the temple atop that mountain that was built on the backs of countless slaves. Previously, this location was inaccessible even with the Heavenly Castle, but Master Dragon can airdrop my family and then leave, which I'm glad he has so much faith in us. Yeah. At the peak of the mountain, my family approaches the temple. It's been 10 years since I've been here, and it's changed a lot. Inside, there's countless guards and hooded cult members, all who swear devotion to Bishop Gemma and Lady Martha. So much devotion that none of the cultists will move out of the way, and I can't figure out why, so I leave and enter a side building where, oh, hey, look at that, the heavenly armor. Stab and yoink. Surf is now fully dripped out as the heavenly hero trick-or-treater. I then go back to the temple and see if I missed a way inside, and it turns out to clear a path, I just needed to keep talking to everyone until they notice my family aren't cult members. allowing us to fight our way through it and arrive at the center of the temple, where Bianca serves as an idol piece, while my mother, Martha, stands in front of her. Speaking to my mother, she proclaimed herself as one who holds dominion over this temple, with power second only to Lord Ebul, the dear leader. My mother then comments on how I've grown and how my father, Lord Papas, was a bore. She then asks if I'm willing to hear her story. Of course, I say yes. But then she asks me to promise to renounce my throne and faithfully serve Lord Ebul like her. It's the sudden shift, but of course I refuse. I never chose to serve Ebul for 10 years in the first place, and with my freedom I'd never willingly choose that again. Martha tries to guilt trip me into saying I don't really want to hear her plights, and I agree, saying yeah, I don't care, I don't need to hear your story, causing Martha to become distraught, asking if I really intend to fight my own mother, which, yeah, of course I do, because I know this Martha isn't my mother. Beginning my battle against Bishop Brahmada, who hits pretty hard, but I hit her back harder, eventually killing her. And with her death, the control she has over the mindless cultists break and they return to their senses. One even tells me of a secret staircase, and another is revealed to be the boy I saw get kidnapped during my time as a statue. I'm glad I was able to save him. I then descend down the secret staircase, finding the old tunnels that the slaves used to transport materials. The kids even comment on how haunted I look. We then descend further into the temple proper, fighting through monsters and navigating a maze of pathways, until eventually we reach the den of the dear leader, Lord Ebul, a crocodile lady. She ponders if everything has been destined to happen, the death of the cult members, the birth of the legendary hero despite her best efforts to stop it, everything. Yet even so, she resolves to kill every last one of us, and the battle begins. The fight is almost tough. Almost. Lord Ebul fights like an easier Buon with breath attacks and a couple strong punches. But the fight is made easier by the fact that sometimes Ebul will waste turns by defending or casting a bounce spell, giving me valuable recovery time that allows me to comfortably defeat her. Also, bounce isn't even remotely an advantage because all I did was hit her with swords and whips and sticks. At her defeats, Ebul is in complete disbelief, believing that this could not have happened, for Demon King Mildrath predicted a different outcome. She then reveals that my mother Martha is in the demon world being held captive by Lord Mildrath, the Demon King, going on to state that if I want to rescue her, I'll have to enter the demon world, but being assured of the fact that I'll likely perish in there. She then calls upon Mildrath to grant her more power so she can open a gateway to the demon world and send me on through. But nothing happens as the request is denied, and instead, Gemma arrives. Laughing in Ebul's face, calling her a fool for not realizing that she was only a figurehead. Demon King Mildrath never had any respect for her, and with yet another kafrizzle, he incinerates her. Then turning his attention to my family, he tells me to do as I'd like, for now, because it'll make my future sadness far greater. He leaves, and either Gemma drops it, or it falls out of Ebul's pockets, but a life ring appears and I take it. Also, I'm still in the temple, so I walk out and it's just kinda awkward. There's no more encounters. It's here where I just think back on the fact I wasn't able to save Bianca. Nothing's changed regarding her condition, but at least we found her. As I near the entrance room where I killed Bishop Ramada, the life ring I picked up starts to speak. The voice claims to be my mother, for real this time. She says that she wanted to see me all this time and understands where I'm coming from, but begs me not to enter the demon world. In her words, even the legendary hero would not survive against the great Demon King. She begs me to stay in the human world, live a good and happy life with my wonderful wife and amazing children, while she will remain in the demon world and ensure that Mildrath never enters the human world even if it costs her her life. With that, she tells me to go, to carry on, because someone special is waiting by the entrance of the temple, and with that, she bids me farewell. Hearing Martha, Sancho is driven to tears, while Surf is angered, believing it to be nothing more than a lie that the legendary hero couldn't stop the Demon King. And Shmoopy is saddened, but once again more worried about me than herself. Pushing forward, we return to Bianca's statue, where a warm glow overtakes her form and the statue begins to shake. Her stone form begins to break away, and she returns to her humanity. It seems my mother's magic was able to cure her all the way from the demon world. The game then cuts back to Castle Granvania, where Bianca thanks our children and I for traveling the world to save her. She then apologizes to Surf and Shmoopy for not being present in their lives, to which they both run up to embrace her. However, the sweet moment is interrupted by a soldier who informs me that King Ogiron is calling for me. Sancho and I head downstairs, letting Bianca catch up with the kids. I stand before Ogiron, who has a simple question for me. Do you plan to venture into the darkness of the demon world? Answering honestly, I state, I do. Upon hearing that, Ogiron begs me not to go, stating that he's heard of Martha's last message, likely from Sancho, but he wants me to stay, to think of my family and all the people of Granvania who would be lost without a king. I don't respond and walk away, talking with Sancho, who understands where Ogiron is coming from, but affirms that he stands with me and wants to save Martha in the name of my father, affirming that he'll follow me wherever this journey takes us. Besides, I was never much of a king, I only lasted barely a day. I return to my family and tell them of my intentions. Shmoopy is ready and willing to save her grandma. Surf responds as any legendary hero should. He's itching to slay a demon king. And Bianca is my ride or die. No matter what happens, she's coming along with me. So the family leaves Granvania for the final time. This whole quest might be selfish, because yes, the Demon King doesn't pose a direct threat to the human world at this time. But you have to understand, I won't accept anything less than an absolute victory. And I want to finally end the quest I've been on ever since Lord Papas took me from Granvania as a baby. Now I need a way to get into the demon world, so naturally I decide to go to El Haven. Their whole culture is about opening and closing portals to the demon world, so. And there, the elders inform me of a water temple to the east of El Haven that might just be what I'm looking for. So I set sail for the temple, crack the door open with Buon's ultimate key, and find 3 statues, each holding their hands out for one of the 3 special rings. The 3 rings I already possess, those being the fire, water, and life rings. With the rings placed, a swirling vortex appears and my family and I step into the last leg of our quest, the demon world. Upon arriving, everyone can feel the tangible evil aura and energy in the air. This place is a land entrenched in shadow where only the most powerful monsters dwell. Before we fully set out, my mother contacts us and relents, understanding that I'm just like my father. I won't stop looking for her, and I intend to face off against the Demon King Mildrath. To that end, she resolves to help me in any way she can and bestows upon Shmoopy the Prayer Stone. Basically, an infinite, MP-less use of multi-heal. Shmoopy just got very helpful. As we travel, the kids and I do our best to protect Bianca, who's about 15 levels too weak to contribute to battles. Speaking of battles, this is where the game's toughest battles are, because as is the case with most Dragon Quest games, there's a point where the random encounters of the final areas become so strong they either always nearly wipe you out or require careful enemy deletion. Add on to it the constant luck to survive thwack. And this is no different. There's a good chance in most encounters that I'll get murked and slaughtered. Meaning that I have to heal in just about every fight and needed to use the Prayer Stone in always. Yeah, just always. Shmoopy is the Prayer Stone. However, the battles were all in service of tracking down the Demon King Mildrath, who was seated in his citadel atop Mount Evil. Though before starting my climb, I do stop at the only town in the demon world, Jahana, which is strangely run by humans, or, well, former monsters. These people apparently congregated in this area after Martha, my mother, purified it and taught them all a pathway in which they could become human. It's the last checkpoint, a place to stock up with the best weapons and armor that I can afford. Things are crazy expensive and the greed of sin is very present in these shopkeepers. But that's all I can really say about this place, so after I make my preparations, it's off to Mount Evil, where the final ascent begins. Stepping between the towering statues, my family navigates a maze of poison, dead ends, and drops, all while fighting the toughest monsters. Slowly and surely we ascend, eventually arriving near the summit, finding a series of peaks connected by bridges that guide us toward my mother, who is being held captive by a few monsters that are easily dealt with, allowing me for the first time to see and speak to my mother. I found her, I honored his wish. Upon seeing me, Martha bathes me in warm light and tells me how overjoyed she is to see my face for the first time since I was born, remarking how she can now die without any regrets and resolves to use her power to try and seal Mildrath. To that end, she prays to God, the Almighty, but once again another hardship falls upon me as Gemma incinerates my parents one more time. He mocks my powerlessness and then swears that this time he'll send my entire family into darkness, beginning Gemma's final assault. He doesn't stand a chance. We've grown strong. I've changed. He hasn't. In a matter of mere minutes, Gemma is utterly obliterated. And the light of my mother and the light of the legendary hero is able to eradicate Gemma from the world altogether, reducing him to nothing more than a memory. Martha meanwhile still lives, clinging to life, trying to affirm her love for me, and promises that she'll do what she can to weaken Mildrath, but finds herself unable to rally the strength and collapses. While trying to force herself back up, a voice calls out to her, the voice of my father, Lord Papa's. He asks her to stop, acknowledging that I've grown far stronger than either of them, and that I deserve their trust, that they should leave everything to me and my family. Hearing that, my mother decides she would rather die than spend time getting to know me, joining my father in the afterlife, with the two affirming that they'll always watch over me, leaving me to confront the full power of the Demon King. Shmoopy and Surf both weep over the family they never got to meet, while Bianca does her best to comfort us, acknowledging the loss of both my parents, but being glad I could at least see my mother. Tightening our resolve, we start heading down Mount Evil towards its center, finding a vial of holy water along the way after defeating an intense sliding puzzle. Then using that holy water to light the path towards the final path, a long winding trail that leads to the domain of the Demon King, Mildrath. And there he looms, patiently awaiting our final confrontation. Now, Mildrath doesn't have much lore, he's just the Demon King waiting to oppose the hero. But in this PS2 version, and later the DS version, in El Haven and a few other spots, you're able to learn about Mildrath through a few books. Supposedly, he was a scholar who studied the ancient past and learned of the secret of evolution, which he perfected to maintain his intelligence, allowing him to become the undisputed ruler of the demon world, Nadira. But truthfully, who cares? It's time to end this. Hero versus Demon Lord, with our power that goes beyond dreams. Mildrath wastes little time in proclaiming his power, declaring himself to be the one chosen by fate to supersede both heroes and gods, then beginning the game's longest boss fight. In his first phase, Mildrath is a mild threat. He'll occasionally clear buffs, fire off some whole party attacks, and most notably summon monsters to assist him. The monsters he summons are a bit threatening and act with a degree of randomness that adds to the tension. It's a delicate dance of trying not to overextend myself and preserve my resources, because I know this is only his first form. But it still takes 8 full minutes to defeat this form. Yet Mildrath ain't pressed. Yeah, he expected to lose, and now he gets serious and transforms into a larger, more powerful form, one that foreshadows a being from nearly 20 years in the future. In this form, he's a lot like Buwan. Buffing, debuffing, and clearing buffs, party-wide attacks, and strong single-target punches, plus the chance to pull off a few status ailments, but those never really hit me. Add onto it one dangerous game I played by having my protag wear the mirror armor. Huge defense bonus, in exchange for potentially reflecting any spell, including any healing spell or buff spell. Thankfully, my hero is able to still fully heal himself, so there was always that to fall back on. Also, did I mention that he has a lot of HP? Like nearly 12,000 basically, because he slowly regenerates a bit every turn. Now, hearing all of that, you might think this boss fight is a nasty piece of work, like this guy's gotta be strong and crazy difficult. Yeah, about that. No. He's not very hard. He's definitely the easiest final boss I've ever defeated in Dragon Quest history. And going by some forums I was looking up earlier, that seems to be a pretty common sentiment. He's a long lad, but quite flaccid in the grand scheme of things. He sounds a lot like Buon, but he's no Buon mainly because of one item. The prayer stone that my mother gifted me when I first entered the demon world. It's a free multi-heal, for no MP cost. I did not have that when I fought Buon, but with this item, I'm able to more or less keep my HP steady with occasional multi-heals from Surf and the occasional full heal from me on myself or anyone whose HP is too low. Aside from that, it's just a slow and steady battle of Edwin, Surf, and Sancho taking his HP down 100 at a time. The battle took 22 minutes, at least a third of which was sped up, until eventually, the legendary hero Surf slays the Demon King. Mildred's last words are of utter disbelief.
Mildred. Impossible. How could they defeat me?
Once he fades away, the family is transported before Master Dragon, who thanks us for returning peace to the world, for which he drops the formalities and admits to wanting to spend more time as a human cause it's fun. After which he carries the family and I on a big farewell tour to see how the various communities are celebrating the fall of the Demon King. From getting to see Henry, Maria, and their kingdom once again, seeing a restored Santa Prisa, visiting Mr. Ludman and Flora. Truthfully, the best one though is getting to see Duncan, Bianca's father again, and introducing him to his grandkids. That is the absolute highlight. I'm so glad this old man gets to see his kids, it's amazing. Before then finally returning to Grandvania, where the whole kingdom has prepared a celebration in my honor. Even the monsters who assisted me throughout my entire endeavor are here. I'm glad they get the representation they deserve. And wow, this game used to be about monster collecting. Plus, Master Dragon's here as Pusan having a grand old time. But once I hear what everyone has to say, I travel upstairs and sit upon my throne, then participating in a glamorous dance, signaling the start of a new era. A chance to live the life that my father and mother and I never got the chance. Remember that Surf and Shmoopy had their lives upended the day after they were born. They've had to go on a massive quest to find me, then save their mother, then save their grandmother, then slay the Demon King. They've been through so much at just 8 years old. But now, they can just be kids. And now Master Dragon's railing my cousin, bringing the tale of Dragon Quest V to an end, which I gotta say, is a pretty good game. I understand why some people have this as their favorite Dragon Quest of all time, but personally, it's not that for me. I think the glory of Dragon Quest XI and the perfected spirit of adventure in 7 outclass it. Though, in terms of just pure story, Dragon Quest V is in contention for either being my favorite or second favorite story in the franchise. The tragedy of the hero's life is memorable, and it's an interesting choice for the protag to be someone who isn't the hero. Plus, there's Party Chat, which I mentioned a few times is really good. It adds so much characterization and makes you really feel attached to the human party members, which I can't really say about the monsters, who in my opinion as a Pokemon, Digimon, and Shin Megami Tensei fan, think feels a little tacked on. Though I'm not going to really complain about it or make a comparison because Dragon Quest V predates Pokemon. For what it is, I think it's really good. I like being able to recruit your own Skrunklies. For example, I'm a huge fan of Slime Knight. I think he's awesome. He's now one of my favorite Dragon Quest monsters. Yeah, so overall, the monster collecting biz is very fresh, and we can all thank Healy for it. However, I think the system is what ties into the greater gameplay issues of this game. As I said a few times, the RPG combat of this turn-based RPG sucks. It's a lot of mashing A, and very little thinking is required for 95% of the fights in this game. Part of which I assume is because for a large portion of the game itself has no idea what kind of party the player will have, and it's like that until the kids show up. so the challenges of the various fights cannot be built around the kinds of skills and characters the protag will have. And yeah, I know that in stuff like Dragon Quest, you don't really consider things like type matchups or super effective damage, aside from like Dragon Slash. But even here, like, the buffs are pretty minimal, and it just doesn't really add much to it. Like, magic, for instance, feels incredibly useless for most of the game. I really did not use swoosh or zap or anything. I kinda only used kaboom at the very end. Plus, this version of Dragon Quest V and the DS version have a very notable difference when compared to the SNES version. That being, party size. In the original game, party size was only 3 instead of the standard 4. That simple change alters the action economy and boss battles, it limits resources, and additionally it means that the single target attacks that the bosses like to use would feel a lot more dangerous in a party of 3 when compared to 4. 4 is bigger than 3 after all. Changes like that are supposed to make the games more in line with its modern entries, but to me it kind of fails because it didn't alter the game's initial core opposition, which is the same reasoning for why Persona 3 Reload and Portable are very easy games. Where was I? Oh yeah, Dragon Quest V. Beyond gameplay though, the game succeeds with its power of themes and powerful points of tragedy, which allows the game to craft your story, which is what I want to talk about now. That's right, this video is now about Dragon Quest V, Your Story, the movie that adapted Dragon Quest V, Hand of the Heavenly Bride. There's 2 reasons why I want to do this. Number 1, when else am I going to get a chance to talk about this? Besides, now that you, the viewer, know everything that happens in Dragon Quest V, you can follow along as I discuss multiple differences between the game and the movie. And number 2, I think the movie will help me better illustrate the game's ideas on the loss of childhood, memory, and the constant march forward. At first subtly, and then very directly. And later on, I'll be talking about that using the Legend of Zelda Ocarina of Time. Now to begin, Your Story, the movie, as I'll be referring to it, is a 3D animated film that was released in Japan in 2019, and then came to the States the next year on Netflix with an English dub. Now the English dub is what I watched because personally I've always preferred dubs as I feel I can get more out of a performance in a language I can understand. Plus, word choice, connotation, denotation, and so on are quite sick. The 3D CGI in the movie is done in a style that is not Toriyama-esque, but I think that's fine, mainly because Dragon Quest is more than just the late and great Toriyama's art style, especially since, you know, the first 7 games were like pixels. But I really like the movie's art style. It reminds me of how Detective Pikachu made all the Pokemon like really fuzzy, and I think the designs for the cast are great. Nera and Bianca are very pretty, dare I say, hot. Gemma is horrifying, and the Dragon Quest monsters look just right and occasionally very cute. Like I said, that Detective Pikachu fuzziness. The only design I don't like is that of our main protag, Luca. He just looks too scrawny and has a face that's really goofy looking, especially the hair. Major aura downgrade from the hero on the game's box art. But he does make up for it with his characterization. Also, the movie is around 100 minutes long, or about an hour and 40 minutes, which means it has a lot to cram in, but for the majority of the film, I think it does a great job. I truly enjoyed about 94.36% of the movie. There was about 5 minutes and 30 seconds of the film I very much did not enjoy. But we'll talk about that later, because I want to tell you all about the changes the film made. So, I'll now proceed to go and spoil the whole movie. You can find it on Netflix or some other way to watch it on like The Daily, or in motion, I guess. If you don't want spoilers on this very solid film, feel free to skip to the Legend of Zelda Ocarina of Time part of this video. That focuses more on the actual game, and the movie section is just a fun thing for me to add on to it. Plus, you'll get a bit of extra context. Alright? So, everyone who doesn't want to be here gone? Very cool. For starters, the hero of this film is named Luca, and names are going to be different because the official English localization names are different from the PS2 fan translation I used. But you'll go on fine, I'll clarify things as they come up. Now the film kinda glosses over the first generation with the hero's birth, meeting Bianca, and clearing the haunted castle, all being done through shots of the original SNES game. It's a little lame, I'll admit. I think this game would have been better with those scenes being done in the rest of the movie's art style. Plus, the first meeting with Bianca and Flora might have been cute, you know? But the movie does something to justify all that skipping, as the very first scene we see animated in 3D is the scene of the hero speaking to a mysterious drifter. Yeah, that's his future self, and that's awesome. I love how they establish it, and the snow looks so pretty. It makes the scene feel magical, and implies a great importance to the scene for those people who probably haven't seen Dragon Quest V, most likely someone's kids. But like, starting the movie like this is a great idea because man, I was frothing at the mouth. I can only imagine how some guy in a theater was feeling. From there, it then speedruns the whole Henry kidnapping, murders the father Pancraz in the first 5 minutes. It's very sad, especially since little Luca gets thrown over to his father after he dies. The movie then jumps to 10 years later, post-slavery, where, yeah, that was just the hero's recurring dream, which serves as a nice framing device and grounds the narrative in the present. For a majority of this film, we do stick to mainly Luca's perspective, as is true to form from the game. And from here, the story just goes. Henry and Luca escape, but without Maria, and instead of the temple being on a lone, empty mountain, there's actually a whole city underneath it. Which does feel like it was missing from Dragon Quest V, especially since, well, where were Maria and the other slaves coming from? It's also in this new town where they meet Dr. Aegon. I really wish my version had this name. Pusan's cool and all, but Dr. Aegon, Master Dragon. It's perfect. And he's who sends Luca off on his journey. Speaking of that journey, Luca and Henry immediately part ways with no adventures being shared. Henry goes on to solo getting his kingdom back, which is, good for that guy. Meanwhile, Luca gets to go meet an early Sancho. Let's go! I love this change. I absolutely adore it. I think the hero really should have had a more consistent cast in his adventure. And in the scenes with Sancho and the discovery of Pancraz's letter, the movie does its first major change. Luca is the perceived legendary hero. For the first third of the movie, Pancraz, Sancho, Bianca, and even Luca himself believe Luca to be the heavenly hero. A lot of the first third of the movie is about Luca accepting the call to adventure and becoming brave. It's the bravery that then leads him to picking up Pancraz's mission and journeying to find the heavenly sword, or Zenithan sword as it's called in this movie. I gotta say, I do prefer heavenly to Zenithian. Heavenly just sounds cooler and more mystical, like a thing of legend. While Zenithian has this clinical feel to it. Also, yeah, in the film Pancraz, Mr. Dad, never found the heavenly sword. But also in the movie, only the heavenly sword matters. The helm, armor, and shield are never mentioned. Speaking of things that are never mentioned, El Haven, or their connection to the demon world. Instead, Luca and his mom are also heavenly folk. The Nethians. Partially anyway, just not descended from the heavenly hero. Or it's possible they may not just be the chosen legendary hero. The film makes a big deal about the fact that Luca, his son, and even Bianca have golden eyes. Anyway, back to the film. Instead of the shield being held by Mr. Ludman, his counterpart, Mr. Briscoletti, has the heavenly sword, and he's doing the same marriage proposal scheme as in the game. Just that it's for Nera, not Flora. And instead of, getting the magic rings, the person to defeat Buon gets to marry Flora. Oh, sorry. The rampaging monster Bjorn, aka Buon. The hardest fight in the game who took the experienced protag, legendary hero plus twin, and the unstoppable Sancho to beat. Yeah, that guy is now Luca's first real trial, and much like my experience, his first attempt does not go well. But Bianca, yes, her name is Eternal, lend him a hand and the pair come up with a plan to defeat Buon by acquiring the Zenithan sword that Bjorn stole during his rampage, leading to a frantic game of cat and mouse that results in Bianca tossing Luca the Zenithian sword. But he is tragically not the legendary hero everyone has been hyping him up as. Unable to draw the Zenithian sword in a moment of true urgency, the situation then gets worse as Bjorn decides he's had enough of terrorizing people and flies out to just go and massacre the nearby town. Yet despite learning he's not the prophesized hero, Luca, while disheartened, does not give up. Which, I'll be honest, reminds me of another great hero who despite everything was a fraud unworthy of his own legendary sword. Luca resolves to find a way to stop Bjorn through grit and trickery. It's a very cool scene. But when given the chance, Luca doesn't kill Bjorn. Instead, he recruits Bjorn, allowing him to save the town and earn the right to marry Nera, who I must say, yeah, she's hot. And very, it's very distracting, but she's voiced by Xanthi Huynh, the voice of Haru Okumura. I just wanted to point that out because her voice is very easy to recognize. Main point is, Nera and Luca, though, have a lot of chemistry in their first meeting and they are super cute together. I find it very funny and pretty real how Luca initially does not want to fight Bjorn at all, but changes his mind real fast when he finds out that Nera is into him and he can marry her. They have a really good dynamic and I wish we saw more of it. However, the Bianca and Luca dynamic is way better because much like in the game, Bianca is ride or die as hell. She and Luca bounce off each other in just the right way, where they argue and bicker, but you can tell they both clearly care about each other a whole lot and are just shy. So it's no wonder they end up getting married, especially when there's this really cool and surreal scene of Luca trying to figure out if he wants to marry Bianca or Nera. Personally, I think he made the right choice. Though after getting married, the hero immediately settles down, putting his adventure on hold since Bianca got pregnant and gave birth to their son, Alice. Yeah, only child. No schmoopy in this world. Which does make sense. She's honestly not that important. Though with Alice's birth, despair is soon to follow as Gemma launches a full-scale attack on the hero's home to kill him, as Luca is still perceived as the legendary hero with the Zenithian sword. A chase ensues that culminates in Sancho being sent off with the young Alice, while Bianca and Luca fight a losing battle that ends in Gemma's abduction of Bianca and Luca's petrification, which is honestly a really hard scene to watch. The horror on Luca's face when he realizes he can't save Bianca is harrowing, especially when Gemma just marvels at him. Ugh. But 8 years later, Alice shows up to save Luca and reveals his ability to wield the Zenithian sword, which is neatly foreshadowed in the days after his birth, for when Alice was born, Luca remarked that the Zenithian sword wouldn't stop shaking. The sword wanted Alice immediately, but Luca just thought the sword was just getting restless, which, honestly, both are correct. Father and son duo then recruit Dr. Aegon, who's Master Dragon, but needs a shimmering orb to regain his form, combining the Dragon Orb and Golden Orb into one plot point. Also, we don't get to see the Heavenly Castle, but, well, we don't see Luca acquire the Heavenly Castle like in the game. Instead, the Heavenly Castle looks to be Gemma's HQ, which is pretty cool as I believe that's a Dragon Quest VI reference. But back to Master Dragon, he guides Luca to talk to the fairies, he does that, and then we get the time travel section, which is very, very lovely. I love seeing Luca talk to his younger self. It's a very fun scene, and my only gripe is that I wish Luca imparted the wisdom onto his younger self, instead of it being the other way around. Like, I truly appreciate the "little boy, no matter what life brings you, never give up" line from the game. But even without it, the scene is wonderful, as it's here where child Luca imparts onto adult Luca the drive to keep moving forward no matter how dire things may get. A drive that is very much needed in the final battle against Gemma, where the father and son free Bianca, leading to an all-out battle against Gemma's forces. But just as it seems like they'll be overwhelmed by the sheer numbers, Bjorn and Henry arrive with reinforcements, allowing Luca to confront Gemma in order to stop him from summoning Nimzo, the Demon King. It's a very good fight. I love the part where Bjorn and Henry join the fray, with Henry showing up like a Dragon Quest protag. That then culminates in Gemma's death and the summoning of the virus. If you've heard of the Dragon Quest movie, this is likely what you've heard of, as this is the part where the entire movie unravels and becomes bad for 5 minutes and 30 seconds. You see, your story is actually about a guy who's playing Dragon Quest V in experimental VR. A VR system that temporarily wipes his mind and allows the guy to actually live the life as the hero from Dragon Quest V. And that explains why the protag Luca of your story doesn't quite look like the hero of Dragon Quest V. it's a canonical loss of aura. It's also a bit of a sketchy setup because I think that means Yuji Horii programmed an actual, like, sex into this VR game. It's probably a rhythm game, and if you're too bad at the minigame, you probably only get one kid instead of both. Oh, that's pure speculation on my part. That is not said in the movie. Also, the existence of the memory wiping technology is scary, and wouldn't this game impart like actual trauma of watching your father, who you've known your whole life, get brutally murdered right in front of you? Wouldn't that, be traumatic? Plus, the petrification trauma and idea of, oh god, imagine being the person who plays this game and has a monumental crash out upon realizing that you missed out on your child's entire life, and then have to drag them into a life or death mission to save the world and their mom. Anyway, Virus. He's kinda sick, not gonna lie. I actually like his design. It's creepy. But like, as the final villain of, the Dragon Quest V movie, it sucks. Cause it's not really a character. It's a virus, a set of data. Just an antagonistic force. One that's being employed by a hacker to destroy this virtual reality experience because... grow up, loser. Live in the real world, stop idolizing the past and living in nostalgia. Which, I'm gonna be honest, the hacker's kinda right, especially when they're trying to bring down a virtual reality machine that wipes your memory and makes you believe the simulation you're in is completely real. Stopping the machine is just. Think about the damage this thing could do to people if it wasn't a simulation of Dragon Quest V. This is a dystopian society tool in the making. The hacker is on the side of justice, wanting people to see beyond the fun brands and friendly recognizable names for the corporations that are using it to divert their attention from the affront to their freedom. That's one lens we can look at this from. Alternatively, the lens that the movie wants us to see this from is... okay, so you ever play Kahoot? And like, it's really fun? And you're just answering questions about a topic and having a fun competition with your classroom or among your friends? Now think about how scummy it is when somebody in the class who didn't want to play decides to flood the Kahoot game with thousands of bots who ruin it, and cause the game to crash, resulting in everyone getting annoyed at their fun being ruined. That is how the movie wants us, the viewer, to see this as. To see it as some mean-spirited lad who wants to ruin the fun and harmless memories of gamers who like Dragon Quest V. The dialogue in this portion of the film is very blatant, with the virus saying a lot of the stuff I said earlier, like, grow up, loser, and Luca directly opposing it by saying that video games matter. Directly stating, the worlds these games brought to life have never been fake, not in the least. The time I spent with them was real. Everyone I met, to me, it was all true. It's another reality. To Luca, the memories of the game are more than real enough. A sentiment I quite like because games are media, same as books, movies, and stories. You can learn lessons and take aspects from games to add to your own personality and personhood. The memories of a game are real, and they add to the player's real life story. Dragon Quest V teaches ideas of parenthood, determinations, and the desire to protect and preserve, carry on legacy, and find one's purpose in life, even if they themselves aren't the center of the world. And Luca demonstrates this physically when the game's antivirus system, the slime, who aside from Bjorn and the cat are the only monsters Luca commands, gives Luca the power to slay the virus with the Sword of Kings, the legendary blade wielded by the hero Erdrick in the Erdrick trilogy, and, well, the sword that the Luminary kinda made 10 versions of that he never used. As the virus is slain, peace returns to the world of VR Dragon Quest, and Luca, despite knowing it's fantasy, resolves to keep the game in his heart. The movie ends with Luca and his family overlooking the world they saved, with this interesting detail of Bianca playfully punching Luca, and Luca remarking that he feels the pain of the impact, like he really, truly feels the pain. Which I think is meant to be proof of the fact that the game has left a mark on Luca, a sort of pain and sense of longing for this world that he will never forget. Pain isn't always bad. And truthfully, if you were made to believe this entire experience was your life, yeah, it'd be pretty painful with the whole family death, slavery, and constant struggle. Yet it's still speckled with moments of joy. But primarily, what I think Luca is experiencing is the pain of leaving the media behind. The pain of losing your childhood. That's what the whole movie's about, I think. It unfortunately has to be about that since the virus was involved. But I don't think that's entirely negative, and does still tie into one of the major themes of Dragon Quest V. That being the loss of childhood and being forced to grow up. To better examine this, like any good video essay, let's talk about The Legend of Zelda: Ocarina of Time, and proceed to spoil its entire ending. There are some more modern games I could use, but I don't want to spoil something more recent, and Ocarina of Time is, old and famous. Now, while editing this, I did find out that, Ocarina of Time is getting a full-blown remake, which, means the game is no longer gonna be old and busted. Proceed at your own caution. Although, I personally think they're gonna make a few changes to the remake. I think it's more of a reimagining than anything, but yeah, I don't know, just go with what you think is right. Yeah, I'm sorry, I'm gonna keep spoiling this. So I'm sure most people have either played it or have already heard of what happens in it, or you just won't ever play it. So here I go. If you do want to skip this little section, video chapters are your friend. Now, in one of the best and most influential games of all time, the protagonist Link does this thing called travel through time. Using the sacred temple, Link can approach the legendary Master Sword and try to pull the sword from the stone, but upon trying to draw the blade, he is deemed too young to be the hero of legend, and instead is placed into stasis, until he awakens 7 years later as an adult, fit to wield the Blade of Evil's Bane. In Link's eyes, he was 10 years old, and in a flash, 7 years have passed, and now he's an adult, forced to fight in a hellish world that's declining. Though the world he had to endure prior to being sent through time wasn't very kind either. Kid kinda had to fight 2 giant parasites, climb Death Mountain, and watch a lot of death. It's messed up to force a child trapped in the body of an adult to do this, and the game itself understands this, which is why at the end of the game, after Link has defeated Ganondorf, Zelda herself sends Link back in time to his child body so he can experience the childhood he lost. Majora's Mask then happens after this, but we don't care about that. The game wants to highlight the importance of childhood and doesn't hold away from the fact that Link literally lost 7 years of his own life, all to oppose the great evil of Ganondorf. The game wants the player to recognize that tragedy, and that sentiment is echoed through both of Dragon Quest V's time skips. The first one, where the protag ages from 6 to 16, is very cruel, because it's a loss of 10 years to slavery, one of the greatest evils in real human history. However, fate necessitates this sacrifice, as it's through that ordeal the protag grows into a young man who will be capable of becoming the hero's father. As a child, they couldn't influence the world like their father Papas, but now they are still too young. But the darkness of Gemma and Mildred forces them to act, forces them to renounce their childhood to stand up to evil. He is considered an adult when he's 16. At 16, he is forced to renounce his childhood and stand up to evil. For every pain inflicted on the protagonist, they grin through it and bear it to serve as the instrument of justice. Because Master Dragon's a lazy, talentless bum. Saving the world requires sacrifice and the willpower to keep moving forward, which becomes extra true when the protag is turned to stone, and his quest then falls onto his children. 2 infants who within the first 2 days of their lives are denied the warmth of their parents because of the forces of evil. Yet unlike their father, they are allowed a lighter sentence than that of their father, because they have each other, they have Sancho, and they have protection of the kingdom, as well as the Heavenly Sword's magical presence. The hero falling to Gemma and being petrified wasn't for nothing, as before that happened, they were able to accomplish so much, and the fruits of their labor ensured a brighter future for his children, who, despite their young age, embark on a long journey to save both their parents. The sun, the legendary hero, Surf in my game, Alice in the movie. That guy. They are the ultimate weapon of justice. But in exchange for that strength, they lose their parents. It's a childhood marred by the protag's absence, who for 8 long years was prevented from seeing his kids, inflicting the same kind of pain that he himself went through. The kids were forced to grow up. They were forced to become heroes at the age of 8, which allows us to draw a comparison to Link, because he went through the exact same thing, forced to pick up a sword at 10 years old. Yet upon gaining their father back, the kids are allowed to be children again. They say silly things, they're afraid of the dark. Surf wets the bed, and Shmoopy worries about frivolous things. With that, they already get a better life than the protag, and he had to lose 18 full years of his life, 10 in chains, and 8 bound in stone. At most, they only had 8 years of freedom. Unlike Link, who was returned to his childhood, the protag of Dragon Quest V isn't able to go back. There's no return, there's only moving forward, which is one of the protag's motivations, and we can infer that from one of his only spoken lines in the game. Little boy, no matter what life brings you, never, ever give up. He is determined to keep moving forward despite his losses, to never give up and never trying to turn it back. Instead, taking whatever hand he's dealt and playing it to the best of his ability, using what he's learned and using it to improve the lives of the next generation, which in turn broadly improves his own future. And that is what paints your story. The movie's controversial ending still reflects one of Dragon Quest V's greatest messages. The movie wants the viewer to be proud of their memories of Dragon Quest V, to understand that the experience and lessons they learned from the game have value and meaning even in the real world. But the game, its story makes the player feel is real, and that makes Dragon Quest V real. If the game is able to leave a mark and make people strive to be heroes, to be a better person, so be it. That's incredible. There are already stories like this in the real world. One of the most famous is from a few years ago where some guy in Japan stopped a robbery or like a knife fight or something because he was inspired by Himmel the hero from Frieren. Dragon Quest V knows that the player might not be able to return to their past to play the game and feel what they once felt, but they want the player to carry it forward. The past is the past. Childhood is lost when you grow up, but the memory of it stays alive while you keep it alive. Grow up, but don't feel forced to. Be grateful if you aren't. And yeah, that's my final conclusion on Dragon Quest V, Hand of the Heavenly Bride. This is a very good game. I wish the gameplay was better, but in spite of that, it's phenomenal, and I'm glad I experienced it. Like I said earlier, I understand why some people consider this to be their all-time favorite, and I'm really glad it got the movie treatment. Not many Dragon Quest games would work well as a movie, but it mostly did. 94% is a passing grade. Alright, if you've enjoyed this video, thank you. This was a lot, but I'm glad I was able to put this together. So consider subscribing and leaving a like on this video. It would mean a lot, especially since we ain't done. There's one more foe left to conquer in Dragon Quest V. Yeah, that's right. I'm talking about the so-called Lord of the Underworld, that punk-ass cockroach-looking cell wannabe S. Stark. He's in the game, and I'm gonna hunt him down. After loading up my completed save file, my family and I awaken in Granvania and make way for Mount Evil. But instead of going north and entering, I head due south towards the Poison Pondlands. There's no like landmark or anything, just walk on the area and bam, I am now in the secret dungeon, the Mysterious Cave. Here the strongest monsters lurk, and it's a real gauntlet to reach the bottom of this cave, especially since these things called Hell Battlers exist. They are, by far, the worst enemy to fight, because if they just spam kaboom, it's very over. My kids and Sancho even comment on how this place just reeks of evil, and the overwhelming malice that just fills the air makes them feel sick. They even ponder how something more dreadful than the Demon King Mildrath can exist. Yet the cave isn't full of just monsters, it also has treasure, with the cream of the crop being the Battle Drum, an item that allows the user to cast a full party-wide oomph for no MP. Pretty busted. Schmoopy can hold on to that. We Torneco's Great Adventure 3 our way through the cave, navigating puzzles and traps like this area where you have to avoid the trapdoors, and then navigate this trial and error Lost Woods-esque passageway. 2 separate times. Yes, there's a Lost Woods 1 and then a Lost Woods 2. Before then finally arriving at a labyrinth that guides me into the flaming den of the King of Curses, Suka Estark. Approaching him, he seems to still be asleep, undisturbed, but it's clear he's awakening. The family is terrified of him. The evil aura is at its strongest here. Speaking to him rouses him awake, and he states plainly that he is Estark, and that is all he can recall. His long slumber has robbed him of his memories, so much so he doesn't even remember if he was good or evil. Though he doesn't even possess any ideas of world domination or destruction. But, all the same, I intend to vanquish him, and the battle begins. A battle against an insurmountable foe. A foe who... Yeah, my squad here is literally just the same squad that fought Mildrath about an hour ago. And the first time I arrived, I did not pick up the battle drum. So my damage was low, and everyone was quite squishy, with all of us finding ourselves unable to really hurt Estark, so much so that it's a very, very quick defeat. I'll be honest, originally, I wasn't gonna fight Estark. Hell, during this fight, I walked in without recovering any MP or HP, cause I wanted to end the video with a funny hee-haw of getting obliterated by Estark. But then, exactly 1 week before this video was published, so on a June 19th, well at the point where the video was under production, I got bored at work. Yeah, I got bored at work and decided to start grinding because, well, I ran out of scripts to write and grinding in a game can be fun. And I figured, let's go fight Estark at the end of today. And I did need to grind because to stand a chance against Estark, you have to have a party in the mid-40s plus some really strong monsters, like Golem, that's properly leveled. I did not want to get Golem, so I just started grinding. Like a lot. For about 3 full hours on speed up. Quite a bit of that time was spent fighting Metal King slimes and altering the flow of time to ensure I could kill them and gain XP. Leveling up my hero to 50. I cannot imagine how much time it would have taken me to level up naturally, because you cannot consistently kill Metal Slime Kings. As for the rest of the party, Sancho and Surf are not far ahead / behind. It was also here where I dropped Shmoopy from the squad because, as I said in her introduction, she has glass bones and paper skin. She doesn't really gain much HP with a few levels and is more or less going to get 2-shot by Estark in a bad turn. She really can't survive the fight, and her oomph spell that made her very helpful during the battle against Mildrath is no longer required thanks to the battle drum. Meaning, to beat Estark, I'm gonna need a true king of monsters. Enter Slight the Slime Knight, he's back. With Slight and my renewed levels, I engage Estark. As I'm fighting him, I do want to mention that Slight never left the party. He has just been sitting in the wagon with Zoro, but with damage and defense equal to Surf and I, so bringing him out was kind of a no-brainer. Once I realized how useless Shmoopy was going to be. Add on to it, unlike Shmoopy, Slight has access to the full heal spell, and if I just give him the Sage Stone and the Battle Drum, yeah, he's really good now and incredibly important for this battle. Meanwhile, Sancho is just pretty much our tank. He takes a lot of damage with his 400 HP and he also deals very solid damage, and can occasionally cast Kabuff, or will spend turns spamming Snooze to make Estark fall asleep. Because, you know, it's Estark. Like in every Dragon Quest game, he is weak to Snooze. And using Snooze, despite only having a 33% chance, can be helpful as it gives me some breathing room to recover. Though it likely was kinda just a waste of my time to keep casting that, as it mainly meant that Sancho spent like half this battle not attacking, and the fight probably could have ended a lot sooner if he was, but he's sleeping, it's Estark, I had to do the thing. Then there's Surf, who is primarily a damage dealer, but his utility is very much needed, as with the Insulate spell and Multi-Heal, help keep us in the fight when things are getting very dangerous, since the Sage Stone can't really hold our HP up like against Mildrath. Insulate also prevents the full party from taking 100 plus damage from Estark's breath attacks, which are pretty brutal. And lastly, the role of Edwin is as damage dealer, and a guaranteed first to mover, thanks to the Meteor bracelet that I picked up a while ago. This ensures that Edwin can always full heal someone low on HP. With all of that out of the way, I should state, this, bar none, is a really good battle. It's intense, and I feel outclassed in just the right way, because Estark's damage output is so overwhelming at times that I can't really heal to full, and at times require desperate plays, along with occasional bouts of hope maxing, because Sancho casting Snooze is the only reprieve I can secure in this fight. But after a grueling battle that lasted 20 whole minutes with numerous close calls, the King of Frauds falls to the blade of the Heavenly Hero once again in only 46 turns. As the King of Frauds fades away, he lets me know one more thing, saying that to reward me, he will unlock the door to his secret indulge, letting me ponder as to what he could have possibly meant. After beating him, I just took in a moment to breathe in the smell of victory, while the family itself was just in complete disbelief that we actually managed to pull that off. Holy crap. Upon leaving the Cave of Mysteries, I decided to wander back in and investigate this secret indulge of the King of Frauds, finding an unlocked door that leads to a Sugoroku board, the largest one in the game, and I have not mentioned Sugoroku at all in this entire video. Sugoroku is a fun luck-based board game that you can play in numerous areas across the world. I think there's like 6 total? It's pretty cool, and you can occasionally gain like rare items, levels, or just general stat increases by playing the board game and rolling well. However, it's pretty unneeded, especially since it can also result in the player losing money and resources. And did I mention it's incredibly BS? Like, there are times where you can just lose an entire run to a single tile that kicks you out of the map. Like, I didn't really use it, but I did decide to complete this one, which is an awful decision, as this is by far the longest Sugoroku board in the entire game, as it contains 3 whole mini dungeons in it, and is spread across 6 whole floors. Basically, think of Candyland if you had to reach the end by going to the Candyland map 6 separate times and it having 3 sub-maps. This took half an hour. It took me half an hour. And that was done through my use of my time travel powers that allowed me to save and reload a bad dice roll. Thanks to that, I was able to reach the end of it on the 2nd attempt, rewarding me with Lil Tark, son of Estark, which the lore implications are huge. Also, he's really cute, adorable even. Though once he joins my party, the game does call him Turk, which is funny. 0 out of 10 fan translation, no spelling mistakes should be in the game, trash, boring game, blah 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 blah. However, that's not all, as with Tark by my side, I'm able to return to Sarbona and then travel to that funky little mysterious jar where Buon was kept. And it releases the creature kept inside, Buon. The reborn Buon, who has been reduced to this marketable size thanks to Mr. Ludman. I also should mention that in the official localization, Buon's name is Bjorn, and the tiny version is named Rebjorn. Never change, Dragon Quest, please never change, I love that. And that will mark the true end of Dragon Quest V. Yeah, there's all these collectibles you can get in the game to stock a museum, but that really doesn't interest me. So enjoy the end of this video by admiring how cute Tark is. Listen, this is a very good game. Gameplay may suck, unfortunately, and funnily enough, that could let me call this video the worst Dragon Quest game I've ever played, which is very funny, but also, dog, the game is still a 9 out of 10. Yeah, this game is still really good. It's just not as good as the future entries. Which, like, honestly, I think that's awesome. I'm so happy that Dragon Quest is a franchise that only gets better as it goes on. With each game, they grow and evolve, but they keep the same spirit of adventure intact. Even the remakes have a lot of heart in them. And I'm not just talking about the Dragon Quest III and 1 and 2 remake or the reimagined remake of 7. This version of Dragon Quest V is the remake, and it's so good. I love the world design, I love the music, I love the story, battles are occasionally fun, and recruiting a monster, even though the system is pretty undercooked I'd say, there's just a lot of joy to be had in recruiting a little Skrunkly. I absolutely love Slime Knight, I want to get a plushie of him now. Plus, I don't gotta talk about themes anymore, you watch the prior parts of the video, it's really good, alright? And now, we are finally done. Man, I want to cover another Dragon Quest game in the future. This was really fun.